Welcome to our webinar today. I have the special privilege of introducing you to our amazing team of FME Product Managers and provide the opportunity for you all to learn about how you can take your data to new heights. So before we dive into things this morning, each of our product managers will take a turn introducing themselves, a favorite thing about their role, and one fun fact about themselves. So let's kick things off with Lena.
Hi, my name is Lena Bug, and I'm a product manager for FME Mobile. I love working with mobile applications. After all, when my kids see me with a phone, I can always tell it's for work. But on a more serious note, I believe in a way mobile applications democratize FME. They give more users easy access to the power of FME. Fun fact about me, I have 6 pets at home. 2 dogs and 4 parrots. 2 of them are really large parrots. Exactly half of them are our pets, and the other half are we are fostering them while they're waiting for their forever families.
Awesome. And Amabelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amabelle Glass, and I'm a product manager for FME Workbench and FME Data Inspector. Love my role. I love to collaborate with everyone at SAFE. I think that's my favorite part about this. I love to chat. If you know me, it's just, I can't help myself. Fun fact about me is over the last, I guess, 10 years, I've moved, I think 10 times. So I've moved like every single year for the last like 10-ish years, but finally settled down the last couple of years. I don't know if that's a fun fact or a sad fact, but it's the first thing that came to mind. Like I've moved a lot. So that's me.
Wow. And the last couple of years must have been nice and relaxing in comparison.
Yeah, good timing to settle down during, I won't even say it. We all know what the last couple of years have been like.
Yes. And Rylan.
Hello, my name is Rylan Maschak, and I am one of the product managers for FME Server here at Safe Software. So one thing I enjoy about my job is the traffic controller aspect. So I get to chat with so many different teams and so many different people here at Safe. So I feel like I have a very wide net of people who I rely on. And a fun fact about me is that I used to dip into exploration geology, which is about 10 years ago now. But I still have a love for rocks, and I do have a collection. There's some on the shelving behind me.
Very cool. And Dean.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Dean Hintz, and I'm the product manager for the XML team and for Open Standards. One thing I love about my job is the thing is with XML and JSON, you come across all sorts of data. Some of it's anything from, let's say, marine mapping to UAVs and you know, anything in between. So there's always new challenges. And 2 fun facts. One is I did live in Bulgaria for 4 years while working for SAFE. So that was a few years back. And so traveled a bunch in Europe during that time. And the other fun fact is I think I'm the only one here with a team mug.
I am very envious of both of those fun facts.
Thanks to Don for the mug. Of course, he's the one who loves XML the most.
Awesome. And Nathan.
I would like a team mug. Hi, I'm Nathan Hildebrandt. I'm a product manager for FME Server along with Rylan. I think in general, what I love about this is just helping build, you know, a better tool for data integration and to help people solve problems with data. When I first started my career, I had a messy data conversion project and I kind of accidentally stumbled on FME, and that's kind of stuck with me. And I've got a soft spot for automation. Fun fact, my wife and I have become so obsessed with ramen that we are going down the path of learning how to make it, which is like a multi-day crazy process.
Wow, you'll have to give us some tips.
For sure.
Awesome. And Jenna.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna Lyons. I'm a product manager on the FME desktop side, specifically around some of the readers, writers, and transformers that we have in FME. My favorite part about the job is, I think, just being able to come to and like learn something new every day. So besides FME being like super broad and covering like a huge amount of area, I think just being able to talk to people and just learn things from everyone I meet has been like keeps each day very exciting. Fun Fun fact, I'll go through a seasonal one. So one job I had was working at a Christmas tree lot. So it's quite some time ago, but it was probably like the most pleasant seasonal job you could get.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And Claire.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Claire, and I'm the product manager on the PDA team. So that's Python and desktop APIs, which is a part of desktop. And I think the favorite thing about my job is getting to connect to a kind of long-term vision. I think it's really interesting to see where we place. And so that's one of my favorite parts about it. Fun fact about me, I've been in my spare time dancing ballet since I was like 7 years old, and it's something that I still love to do to this day.
That's really cool. Awesome. So if you have ever had a delightful or potentially challenging experience with FME and you'd like to see features in the product reflect those experiences, you are in the right place today. So you'll be heard by a product manager that represents your specific area. And as a bonus, you may hear some tidbits about what's coming down the pipeline for FME along the way. I do want to note as well that your questions and feedback do help to influence the future of FME. So we really want to thank you all for joining us this morning. It really means a lot to us. And before we move on, I will take a moment to mention that if we don't have a chance to get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up by email after the webinar. And if you didn't have a chance to submit a question prior, we will also be hosting a live Q&A period to follow. So definitely feel free to type in any questions you think of throughout and chat them in. Without further ado, I will pass the baton off to Dean to give us a brief introduction to Safe Software and FME.
Okay, so some of you may be new to FME, so just give you a little bit of context. Our mission is to help you maximize the value of your data, whatever type of data you might have and wherever it might live, let's say on-prem or in the cloud. So Safe Software, we've been around for more than 25 years and have supported many more than 10,000 organizations right around the world. We've got customers in close to 130 countries and a very strong partner network, more than 150 partners that we rely on to support you where you are. So yeah, I've got some great partners. And in terms of our platform, the authoring environment is on the desktop. And so that's that sort of the visual data flow, data modeling environment. And so it's a kind of no code or low code platform where you can basically drag and drop your data sources and different transformation steps and get the output data that you need. And with a click of a button, you can publish that to server, and that can be on-prem or in FME Cloud or another cloud environment. And then those workflows can be accessed via the web browser or on mobile devices, tablets and mobile phones. So that we have a special client for that as well. In terms of our format support, back in the day, 25 odd years ago, we started off with support for GIS formats and CAD. So those were some of the earlier data sets that we interfaced with. And then over time added support for XML and databases, and then raster and BIM. And then more recently, things like gaming and AR. So a lot of a whole range there, obviously with a strong spatial focus, but a lot of those formats also have non-spatial cousins to them. Next slide.
All right, so thank you so much, Dean. Without further ado, we'll dive right into our interview questions here. And thanks so much to everyone who submitted questions. We got a ton, so that's awesome. We're gonna get through as many as we can this morning. So our first question here is for Lena. How do you decide what mobile app functionality to implement next?
I like this question. Thank you for submitting it. We do have some kind of roadmap for both applications in mind. And based on your feedback, we adjust it. We get feature requests. We look for ideas submitted in community. Another way to get an idea about what to implement next for us is to learn about scenarios our users are working on. If we see an opportunity to add some kind of functionality that will be helpful for you to achieve your goals, we definitely do this. So basically, demand drives the development. It's even more interesting on AR side. AR is a new technology, and everyone seems to be very excited about it. Yet there are not that many real-life applications. So on AR side, what happens? Quite often, development drives demand. We think about functionality, implement it, then we work on demo scenarios that show how this functionality can be used, hoping that they will inspire users to apply them to their scenarios, to their problems.
Awesome. And our next question for you, Lena, is when will Android FME AR app have the same features as FME AR on iOS?
I am happy to report that we have a lot of progress with this. We know that many of our users have Android devices, and it's very important to have AR on both Android and iOS devices. We released first, and after a while, Android version of FME AR back in September. This version is available in Play Store, and it has basic functionality, but I know that many of our users will be waiting for the upcoming release that has geolocation support. We think it's a key feature that all users need to have access to. This version is going to be released in December, so before Christmas you will have it. And iOS version is not stalled. iOS version is now working on attribute support. As soon as we release geolocation on Android, we will switch to working on attribute support on Android as well. So now you can expect them pretty much the same most of the time.
Awesome, thanks so much, Lena. And our next question this morning is for Rylan. So, Rylan, what is the most significant change since automations replaced the notifications feature?
Ooh, this is a great question. I guess the graduation from notifications to automations, we had the notifications feature first with the publishers, subscribers, and topics, and then we built upon that to release the automations feature where you have all the same functionality, just a little bit easier to connect things. So thinking along that line, I think the graduation we've seen from tags in FME Server to FME Server queues, and queues were kind of a central place in FME Server where we were able to assign workspaces or repositories, so they processed on FME Server queues that had specific FME engines underneath. Like maybe if you had, let's say like an Esri application on one machine and you have your FME engine running there. So recently we have built upon FME Server queues again, and we have job assignment rules, engine assignment rules. So instead of thinking about how the workspace is going to be assigned to an engine, we're starting to think about how the engine can be assigned to the queue. So this allows us to have workflows with dynamic engines where we have engines coming and going in FME Server queues for demand that increases and decreases over time. So I think we're going to see more improvements to that feature, but I think that's significant for me because I just think about the system we had for tagging a number of years ago when I first started, and now I look at engine assignment rules and boy, do I wish we had those at the beginning.
Yeah, it's really exciting. All right, and so our next question is, will there be a full web-based version of FME Desktop?
Yeah, asking the great questions here. Yeah, so it turns out if you want to put FME Workbench in the web, for any of you who have used FME Workbench as part of FME Desktop, it's an amazing application. There are plenty of features. There's a lot of intricacies. Think about feature caching for one. It's too difficult to replicate in the web right now. That would be an entirely different product line, I think. We do see demand for it here and there, but we do not have plans anytime in the near future or in the medium future, even for that matter, to have a web-based version of FME Desktop.
All right, thanks so much, Rylan. And our next question this morning is for Amabelle. Are there plans for tighter integration between FME Desktop and FME Server?
So yeah, this is a great question, and I think it builds really well off of the last question we just were asked. So while we put the brakes on Workbench and the web, we are definitely focusing our efforts on providing a more seamless platform experience. You may have noticed we've pivoted to talk a lot about like the whole platform experience. So more specifically, one area we're looking at is making FME Server more obvious and accessible in Workbench. So for example, exploring FME Server as a named connection storage location for your organization, or providing a more persistent connection to your organization's FME Server. So making it a default instead of making you re-authenticate every single time you open Workbench. There's lots and lots of ideas out there. We're still exploring this space, and I would absolutely love to hear more about what you guys would like to see to improve your platform seamless experience. So please reach out to us at any time. These are just a couple ideas that we're exploring at the time.
Awesome. And speaking of hearing from the audience, we do have a poll for everyone here next, and I will launch that here now. So our poll asks, what do you consider are the 3 core features of FME Server? And so we have a few different options here to pick from. We'll give everyone a few seconds here. All right, maybe about 10 more seconds to get your answer in. Looks about 50-50 split right now. Interesting. Okay, so a clear leader. Give everyone a few more seconds here. All right, and it looks like most people have voted, so I'll close the poll. Okay, interesting. So automations, schedules, server apps. Is that what you guys would have expected as the response here? Is that interesting to see?
Oh yeah, great question, Elizabeth. Yeah, I was really curious to see how everyone would answer, because that would sort of indicate where they find the most value, or where they find they're clicking around the most in the FME Server web interface. So we really appreciate this. Seeing this kind of results would help us focus our efforts, if you will.
Awesome. All right, so moving on to our next question here this morning. This one is for Dean. So Dean, why should FME users care about open standards, and what are some recent related improvements?
Yeah, that's a great question. So open standards are important because it makes it a lot easier to share data. If you get some kind of ad hoc data from, let's say, a provider, you have to figure out the schema and all the quirks with it. Whereas if you have an open standard, you can basically develop to that particular schema and format, and it's a lot more predictable. So for example, going from BIM to indoor is easier than just sort of ad hoc CAD. Also, standards reduce implementation risks. So if you have an architecture with several different components and they talk to a well-known standard, it's a lot easier to, say, substitute one of those components out for another one if something doesn't work. And customers like open standards because it allows them to avoid vendor lock-in, and a lot of government agencies and international organizations mandate them. So how we've improved our support recently this last year, I'm glad to say we achieved OGC certification for a number of formats such as GML, GeoPackage, GeoTiff, and KML. We've added a bunch of new open standards formats like OGC CSW for metadata catalogs, City JSON, WMTS, and working on City GML3 right now. And we've made improvements to a number of existing formats, let's say the XSD, XML, Reader, Writer, Cesium, and GML. And there's also new formats that are possible using our GML and XML core. So things like GeoSciML or InfraGML will work with FME even if it's not a named format. So lots of new improvements there.
Awesome. Okay.
And there's a blog article if you want to post the link for that, or I think it might be available at the end.
Yeah, I think we've got the link in the chat now there as well if people want to check that one out. And our next question here is, what are recent trends related to web services and APIs, and how does that affect FME?
Well, first of all, there is a general trend towards doing more things via APIs than just say, let's say, working on static files on disk. So just making things more dynamic and service-based. There's also a general trend away from things like SOAP towards REST, and perhaps not that we'll ever not have any XML, but you know, XML may be more suitable for complex objects, and for simple data streams, we're seeing a lot more JSON and GeoJSON. And then the trend away from having your processing, you know, at your workstation on-prem and into the cloud. And then we're looping back to standards here. There's the open APIs and OGC APIs. So there's more standardized ways like Swagger for interacting with APIs. So just a few ideas there. But of course, with FME, we're making sure we stay up in front of those changes for you.
Awesome. And our next question here is, metadata is becoming increasingly important. How is FME able to meet the demand?
So yeah, metadata, that's a great question. In the past, people may have thought of metadata as kind of a boring, dry topic. It's a bunch of forms you have to fill out about a data set that gets stale almost as soon as you submit it. Now we're finding that there's a big demand for metadata to be automatically kept up to date. And the reason why it's so important is it supports, every time you put in a Google search, you're using metadata, because that's those tags that support search and cataloging. And then also any degree of automation requires metadata, because if you have a dynamic schema situation, you have to have metadata about that data set for the automated workflow to handle dynamic data. And so in terms of FME, we have a lot of tools to support metadata. The new XSD XML Reader Writer supports ISO 19115. There's tools to harvest metadata and things like Schema Scanner. So yeah, there's lots of room there to use FME to support your metadata needs and automation.
Awesome. And we have another question for the audience here. What standards are most relevant to your work? So we will launch that here. And there's 5 different options to choose from. And if there's an option of an other as well, if you want to type that in, if one of these doesn't necessarily apply the most to you.
And while they're responding, I forgot to mention there is that metadata webinar. You might want to drop that link. Oh, I think you already put that in there. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, it's tied between 2. Interesting to see.
Yeah, ISO had an early lead, and now OGC is catching up.
Yeah.
And a lot of proprietary standards there too, yeah.
All right, give everyone a couple more seconds. And I will close the poll now. Okay, interesting. So it seems like OGC just barely takes the lead there over proprietary.
Yeah. And we are currently presenting a number of sessions at the OGC meeting this week.
Very cool.
All right, thanks everybody for your feedback.
All right, so our next question is for Jenna. Jenna, are we looking into a simple Revit writer?
Yes, I know this is something that you guys have asked for quite some time. If I've talked to you in any user research capacity, hello, thank you for your feedback previously. Actually, coincidentally, just this week, one of our developers started doing early preliminary research. So our Revit writing is reliant on a third-party SDK. So what we're looking into right now that we have the capacity is to what extent can this SDK support simple or complex Revit writing. I'm not sure kind of where this is going to end up yet, because like I said, we just started it this week. But I will commit to posting updates as to what we learn on the Revit writing idea posted to our community ideas page. So if you're interested in learning what we find and what our plans are to develop, to what extent, that'll be the first place you'll see information probably within the next couple of weeks since we've just started research.
Awesome. All right. And our next question here is, will you implement writing to cloud optimize geotiff?
So short answer, yes. It's actually in development progress right now. This will be available in 2022, or I guess in like betas for that. Not out in betas quite yet. It'll be integrated into the existing geotiff writer. So if you search for that or cloud optimized geotiff, it'll come up. We're just adding some extra options in there. It should be with the reader smart enough to stream content. And if you have any issues or anything with it, let us know once it's out there, but we're happy to be supporting this for you.
Excellent. And last question here for you, Jenna. What happens to an idea once it's posted to the FME community? How do PMs look at these?
Yeah, so I'm glad we're touching on this because I know it's kind of like maybe a bit of a black box. We just wanted to like spread some light into like what actually happens. So from like an actual step-by-step process, when you submit an idea or actually add a comment to idea, like any action you're taking, not voting, what will happen is we're notified in our internal Slack. So we instantly can see kind of what you're posting there. This gives us an opportunity to go in and respond to anything. If you're making a comment or something we want to pay attention to, we'll know about that right away. Outside of that, what we're doing is taking these comments and ideas and attaching them into like our internal work tracking system. So we can see kind of how demand builds up over time. What we're looking at over time is kind of like, you know, is it something that people have been asking for a while? Does it have kind of consistent demand? You know, what kind of engagement is there with the comments? And Claire's actually just joined to help answer this question, so I'll let her explain a little bit more, kind of from a different PM perspective, what works for her.
Yeah, for sure. We were both interested in this question and so decided to collaborate on it. So we're also once we're evaluating the idea, so we're looking at the strategic importance, the market alignment, also the popularity of that format, transformer, connector. Urgency is sometimes in question, and also if there's any dependencies, whether that's technical dependencies or inter-team collaborations that are needed. So if it goes across teams, there's also that to coordinate. And then maybe a tip for when you're adding information into the ideas pages. So it can help to speed up the process to elevate your idea. If you include things like, do you have a workaround currently? And even if you do, it doesn't mean that it'll be less important to us. It actually just helps us to understand the problem and what does solve it. Is that workaround doing the trick? Is it not quite doing the trick? Why is it not doing the trick? What's the impact on your workflow, or what's the impact on your goals overall? And then also, how often does it happen? So what's the frequency of this improvement or this lack that currently exists?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Claire and Jenna. And on a similar note here, we have another poll. So we do want to serve you better through the ideas page on the community. What improvements would have the highest positive impact for you making idea pages better? So I will launch that poll here. Okay, it looks like you might not have that exact poll. I'm just taking a look. Okay, it might be interesting to do a chat storm for this one. Actually, it doesn't look like we have the poll loaded, but chat in to the questions panel here. What improvements would have the highest positive impact for you making the ideas page better? If you have any ideas, we'd love to see them or have them shared with us, and we'll definitely take a look through anything that's shared out. Okay, so we'll read through those later. We're really excited to see what people have to say. So thanks so much, both of you. All right, and so our next question is for Claire once again. Is FME planning to add bulk mode to the Python caller?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. So we're currently adding bulk mode support to Python formats and transformers. And so that should be all in for 2022.0 if everything's going well. And we'll be having a look next at readers and writers throughout the other 2022 releases.
Awesome. All right, and our next question is, are there efforts underway to support fields of type lookup in Microsoft SharePoint List Reader?
So the short answer is that we have somewhat done this already. It's as of FME 2019.1, so not .0, but specifically .1, that FME is able to read from lookup columns and write existing lookup columns. We're not able, however, to create those lookup columns in the current version. They have to already exist in SharePoint to be able to write them. And there isn't currently a plan to improve on the solution built within 2019.1. And so we're actually interested to hear, this is a bit of an older issue. Was that 2019.1 solution satisfactory? Did that, kind of fulfill that initial need? Let us know in the comments on the idea, and we'll be able to follow up with that. On the side note, we are currently fixing some bugs with the SharePoint lookup writer, so the writer is getting some attention at the moment.
Awesome. All right, and so our next question is, the ArcGIS Online Feature Service doesn't have the ability to write attachments. Is this planned for a release soon?
So this one's interesting because we actually looked into implementing this some time ago and did run into some design problems from it being kind of a writer within a writer. And then without the ability to write attachments included, there is currently a transformer that's available on the hub that you can use. So as a kind of in-between solution, it's called the AGL Attachment Adder Transformer. So you can check that out. And we do have in our backlog being considered a transformer that would read, write, and authenticate using OAuth. And it isn't planned for the next quarter. So the next 3 months, we usually know exactly what's coming up. But it is in the running for prioritization with other improvements. So if you'd like this transformer, you can actually affect whether or not we end up building it with your voice. Do go in with the ideas community and let us know if this is important for you.
Excellent. And another poll for the audience. Let me launch that here. Are you interested in creating your own FME plugins from an FME software development kit? So we'll give everyone a few moments to answer this one. Okay, seems like yes, but I don't know what we would build yet is a common response here so far. Okay, a few more seconds. And I'll close that poll now. Okay, it's interesting to see if that seems to spark people's interest. Could be interesting in the future, or they don't know what they would build yet. So that's good to hear.
Very awesome. If you do know exactly what you'd make, do reach out to us. And it's great to see the interest out there. It is something that we've got in the works. So, and we will be looking for beta users at some point. So stay tuned.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much, Claire. Our next question here is for Dean. I'd like to find a way to standardize populating metadata in our databases with FME. prefer. No need for special third-party software for this, just FME and RSD databases.
All right, oh, that's a good question. Back to sort of circling back to that topic of metadata. Yeah, we certainly do support reading and writing SDE and geodatabase metadata, so not just the data, but the metadata itself. On the reader, there's a feature read mode called metadata, and that will populate the GeoDB metadata format attributes. And on the writer, you can use the GeoDB type of GeoDB metadata on the feature to tell FME to write that, update that metadata field, and that will show up in the geodatabase. So all this is explained in, there's a tutorial on working with geodatabase metadata, and Elizabeth, if you can paste that in the chat, that's great.
Sure.
So you can follow up with that, and of course the reader and writer documentation covers this as well. And I should mention that it's not just about the format attributes. FME has a range of XML tools that let you either update or use, you could use XML Updater or XML Templater to generate metadata templates such as 19115 ISO. Thanks.
All right. So the next question is, why doesn't FME support the utility meter-based .hhf file format for conversion into other more functional formats?
So that's a good question. The short answer is we haven't actually had this request before, so thank you for submitting that. It's certainly something that we could look into. I did have a quick look at it, and it is a structured multi-line per record text file, and we have lots of examples with the text file reader and writer of how to work with text like that. So you could make a custom format out of the box with FME to support that. And if you have any challenges with, let's say, some of the tutorial examples on our knowledge base, you could send us some sample data and we could help you get started with that. But down the road, you know, if we get a couple more requests, or if you want to put in ideas on the community and gets a few votes, we could certainly look at a more formal implementation.
Cool. All right. And data virtualization is becoming more and more popular. Will FME ever go towards data virtualization, so ETL without the L?
Yeah, another great question. I could probably spend half the webinar on this, so I'll try to be quick. Data virtualization, that's kind of a new emerging topic, and it's all around agile design and development of your architecture, high performance and use of caching where appropriate, and building things like business-oriented views of your data, so it make it easy to find and easy to integrate with your business systems. We have talked about it, you know, over the years, we've talked about FME as an ETL tool, and while that's a useful description for some functions of FME, it does come with a certain amount of kind of baggage or connotation. So ETL, extract, transform, and load, there is this idea, there could be an interpretation of that that means you have to kind of load all the data into your data warehouse before you can work with it. And that's certainly not the case with FME. FME, we have a lot of examples where we use what's called lazy evaluation. So you could point FME at a very large raster data set, for example, and then have a series of clippers, and it would really be the and of all those clippers before essentially the writer makes a request down that chain to the reader and only actually reads what it needs. And so there's a number of cases where we can support that kind of lazy evaluation, and where you can design your workflows so that you don't keep around things you don't need in your data flow, and that can make it more efficient. And then we have a lot of tools for dynamic schema. So that's the other aspect of making your data flows more agile, is to support, you know, make it more generic. So you have one workflow that can apply to many different formats and make it dynamic schema. So you can discover the schema at runtime. So we have tools like Schema Scanner, which is new in coming up in new in 2021, and Schema Mapper has been around for a while. A lot of these tools allow you to work dynamically with your data, so that you don't have to design or code to like one fixed schema. So if you want more information about our approach to data virtualization, we're certainly happy to follow up with you.
All right, thanks so much, Dean. So now we have a poll. Which of the following interactions would you want to see more of from our FME PMs? All right, so we'll launch that here. Give everyone a few moments to answer. Yeah, we're always, I think, curious to see what medium people are interested in to receive interactions or information from our various staff at SAFE. So we're really curious to see what you all say and what type of format you are interested in. All right, people like frequent webinars like this, it's looking like, and release notes and product development updates. Okay, and I will close the poll now and share those results out. So this is great feedback to hear. Frequent webinars like this, that's awesome. And product development updates look to be the two most popular. All right, so our next question here this morning is for Nathan. So Nathan, FME Server has undergone some big changes. Which one have you seen users benefit from the most?
Yeah, I think this question speaks the truth. I remember, I think 4 years ago when I started using FME Server compared to the FME Server of today. So many changes, and I'm sure some of you have been using it far longer than that. So yeah, I mean, Rylan mentioned automations and queue control already, and the UI has changed a lot. Lots of other new features and streams. I think my answer for this has to be server apps, though. When I think about just talking with FME Server users and hearing their feedback, like server apps are so powerful, and they're unique because they deliver the power of FME to non-FME users, and just the ability to create a web app without any code, and just have data integration power behind that is super beneficial. So I think server apps is my answer here, and stay tuned as we're going to be throwing automations in the mix for server apps as well coming up.
Awesome. All right, and our next question here for you, Nathan, is my FME server is getting busy. How can I understand when to run or schedule jobs?
Yeah, this is a pain point that we do here, especially as FME servers is just scaling up and up for a lot of organizations. And we are aware it's a bit of a black box, sometimes to kind of get a handle on what's running on your FME server, whether it's jobs, schedules, automations, yeah. But what we've been doing over a few I guess years now, or months and years, is starting to lay some of the groundwork for metrics in FME Server. So the smarts of FME Server are now more aware of how long things take, what kind of CPU usage is going on for jobs, and from that we can start to build statistics, and from those statistics we can build visualizations as well. So we're working on bringing visualizations for FME Server load, just to help users understand where to fit a new schedule, when to run an automation, and just use their FME Server much more efficiently.
Awesome. All right. And so now a poll for the audience. Which FME Server enhancements would excite you the most? We'll launch that here. So there is an option for other, type it in if those top three don't sound like the best answer for you. Okay, we'll give everyone a few more seconds here to get their vote in. Okay, it looks like there's a clear leader with this one. Oh, it just changed. All right, I'll close the poll down now and we'll see where this ends up. Okay, so actually a pretty clear split between the top three. Not a single one is, really far in the lead. So that's interesting to see. Visual analytics for FME server usage is the top vote there.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a bit of a wild one. But thanks so much for your feedback. This is, a bit of a sanity check for us, but also, yeah, to let us know where to focus. So awesome.
All right. And so our next question here this morning is for Amabelle. Are there plans to control the visibility or available values of a user parameter based on another create parameter dependencies?
Yeah, that's a bit of a mouthful. I tried to simplify the question. And then I decided, hey, why don't I just throw in a screenshot because maybe the picture's worth 1,000 words. The short answer is yes. So you may have had a chance to play with the drag and drop parameter builder in 2021.0. And ultimately, this was part one of a more overarching goal to improve the experience of building custom transformers and package solutions. So we wanted to allow solution builders to create the same rich interfaces that we are able to build internally. So building off of that foundation that we laid in 2021, and working with the FME Server team, we're turning our attention now to the next step after the parameter builder, which is allowing the values or the visibility of a given parameter to be controlled by a choice made in another. So for example, that you see here, let's say there's some logic built in here saying that if a user selects a data type of flowers, then only show the parameter group that relates to flowers instead of trees. So it really simplifies your dialogues. You're not having to show every single option. You can show and hide groups based on a choice made in a previous parameter. There's actually a blog post that's linked at the end of this in the resources if you want to read more about this. And kind of, there's a bit of a whirlwind explanation of what parameter dependencies are, but there is a blog post that kind of goes into detail about this later.
Awesome. And it looks like we have time for one more question this morning. So I will go ahead to that slide here now. So it would be great if you could edit within FME Data Inspector. The ability to select and delete features within FME Inspector would be great. Is this on the agenda for future revisions?
So this has a less exciting answer. And if I'm being perfectly honest, we don't have plans in the pipeline to allow for the editing or modification of data in the Data Inspector at the moment. That being said, we're not neglecting DI altogether. Right now under consideration is, or being researched right now, is improving our rendering performance and performance in general in the Data Inspector. So load times, reducing those, and also improving the user experience of sorting and filtering data in the in Data Inspector, particularly between the table and graphics views. So there's definitely improvements coming to the DI, but I don't foresee, at least in the near future, the ability to edit or delete data in that application.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amabelle. And here are a list of resource links that we've dropped in this slide here, and we'll share those out to follow the webinar later today to get you started with a lot of the answers that our PMs had today. So thank you so much to everyone for joining, and we have a next steps recommendation as well. So download FME 2021.2, apply these answers to your own data to manage changes. So we hope that you learned a lot today and got a lot of value out of these responses. And another resource actually would be to share your ideas on the user research group in the community. We'll drop that link as well in the chat now. And we do have a post there that you can start a thread on. If you have any other ideas post-webinar, we would love to hear them. And as a thank you for joining us, we do have a community badge code. We'll drop that in the chat as well. So make sure to redeem your code. And before we dive into a little bit of live Q&A, we will have a few minutes. We do want to let you know about the Peak of Data Integration. So our 2022 UC, we're all really excited to host this in Vancouver this upcoming year. It's been a long time coming. So that happens August 24th to 26th, and we have a link to apply to present and register for that as well. and our FME World Tour. Once again, same link to apply to present. We'll drop that in the chat. And we also have the full tour schedule available on our website. So definitely check that out. There's more than 70 events happening. And our World Tour runs from March 22nd to June 24th. Check out our upcoming and on-demand webinars. We have a ton of great resources in the form of webinars here, lots upcoming in the new year and in the remaining of December. So definitely check that out. And we also have a lot on demand available as well. All right, so I did see a lot of interesting questions fly by in the chat there. We do have time to take a few live here. I might call on our product managers here this morning. Any interesting ones that we might want to highlight?
Early on, there was a question about JSON schema, and that's something we've been tracking for a while. So with XML and GML, we have application schemas, the XSDs, but the whole area of schema around JSON's taken a little bit longer. JSON's always been a bit more free form, but I think that would certainly add some value to our JSON reader writer if we had the option for JSON schema support. So we'll be tracking that. So thanks for the question.
A good one. A couple questions actually about the FME Workbench UI. So maybe I'll pass over to Amabelle if you have any comments for our listeners.
Yeah, so there was a question about are there plans to improve or modify the Workbench UI and in particular bookmarks? And so that's kind of centering on the ability to navigate complex workflows. And I should say, yes, there are. We recently increased the capacity of our design team. So there are definitely opportunities in the Workbench interfaces that we can seek to improve. I won't give anything away yet, but certainly there, as Dale says, top minds are on the problem. In terms of bookmarks, we are aware that it can be a painful experience, particularly with collapsed bookmarks, opening them up and things kind of just go bloop. It's actually a pretty tough problem to solve, which surprised me, but we are looking at ways of improving that experience. So one option could be being able to edit within a bookmark as opposed to actually editing in the whole workspace canvas. So be able to like narrow in on the bookmark, edit there, so that you kind of avoid having to explode everything. But certainly do reach out if you have anything in particular that's kind of grinding your gears about the Workbench interface, or there's things that you find difficult to understand or anything like that, please do reach out to myself or the rest of the team. We'd love to know what you think.
All right, does anyone see any other questions we might want to highlight?
We did have a couple of questions about any plans to improve the installation and upgrade process for FME Server. Yeah, Rylan, did you want to speak to that? We can tag team.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, if you've been in the FME community ideas, you also know this is already a popular idea among everyone. So it's really helpful to get feedback about it. Maybe if there's any specific parts of the upgrade process, like we have been working to migrate all the manual text file replacements into the UI where possible. We've been starting to investigate if we can do like a pause on an FME server so that if you are doing a backup, you can ensure that you can send notification out to people. Perhaps we halt engines from processing. There's some complexities there with streams, of course. So if you have any feedback about maybe certain mechanisms of the backup and restore that you might find important for your organization with your regular kind of upgrade windows, that would be really important to get to our team. But yeah, I think in some regard, we will be looking to do some sort of outreach on the upgrade process itself. We'll probably have to approach it in a few different steps, as I mentioned, even with that pausing of your FME server is going to be a little bit tricky. But yeah, it's definitely something that we have been thinking about. We've seen the requests come in. It's nice to know that people are still interested in it.
I can answer one of the questions I see in the chat. And the question is about whether we plan to have Arabic localization of FME. First of all, I would like to mention that we do not do localization. Our partners work on localization. and we were looking into having an Arabic localization, but apparently technologically it's very challenging, and the product is right now not ready to be localized into a language that is right to left. It's technologically it's challenging. So unfortunately, so far, I am not aware of any of the partners looking into this.
I was just going to mention briefly about the AI and ML question about are we going to have some AI and ML transformers? And I would say I'm not sure about our longer term plans. So I'm not sure if Dale's on the line and wants to pipe up about that. But in the short term, a good place to look for this is on FME Hub. I have worked with the Microsoft Cognitive Services API, so there's a template for that. There's a raster object detection trainer. So in terms of you know, training and algorithms, some samples there, and then there's connections to a number of AI services. So Azure AI, Google AI, Amazon AI, and so you can find all of those on the FME Hub. And that would probably be where I would expect to find any sort of new innovations, sort of niche innovations for things like AI and ML.
I did see Lauren's question asking if Microsoft SharePoint List Reader supports the user type field. Off the top of my head, I am not sure, but I just want to say, Lauren, I've heard you and I can follow with you as well and find that out for you.
Okay, we might have time for one more question. I'm not sure if there's any in particular. And I should mention as well, we did receive a ton of awesome questions by email. And I know we didn't have a chance to get to quite all of them today. Any we missed, we'll definitely follow up by email in case you weren't here at the beginning when I mentioned that.
Maybe one I can address that I think just because it comes up a lot, the suggested transformers. Have you considered providing transformer suggestions in FME? Yes, we actually did do an Innovation Day sprint on that using AI or ML, and with mixed results, I think, because FME is such a broad product and there's so many different ways you can apply transformers to a given solution. It was interesting. I think we are definitely invested in this problem though, like how to get solutions into people's hands faster, depending on what you're trying to do. So a lot of that was based on terminology or just the overwhelmingness of choices. So certainly, like I mentioned earlier, like our design team is looking at this problem and ways of simplifying the interface of Workbench or the options presented to you so that you can find the best solution for your problem faster. So I think that's an interesting question. I think AI and ML is a super interesting space. We might continue to pursue that, but not at this time. We'll probably find other ways to sort of address that problem in the shorter term.
Awesome, thanks so much, Amabelle. And with that, we want to thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Please share your feedback with us through the webinar survey. It takes about 20 seconds. It's 4 multiple choice questions. We would love to hear how we did this morning, and any feedback you can provide us with does help us to improve the program. So we really appreciate it. And thank you so much to our entire team of product manager panelists this morning. It was a lot of fun to join you all.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.